The town faces bankruptcy. £50 million of our savings wiped out in the last 2 years. £100 million borrowed in the last 2 years. £200 million of interest payment to service the debt made in the last 10 years.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Good afternoon to the rabble and other friends. This is one of those free YouTube, Facebook posts we put up every now and then. I know many of my friends have asked me to make sense of the budget for them, because today Oldham Council signs off its budget, and the headline figures, the council's headline figures, have been 2.99%, so under 3%. And Sean Fielding and all of the others have been busy promoting. It's on the headline page on the council's website that this increase is lower than anywhere else in Greater Manchester. Unfortunately for Sean and the others at the council, none of us pay in percentages. We pay in pounds and pence. So when your council tax increase is by 2.99%, and it is already the highest in the area, in fact it's one of the highest council tax rates in the country, when that's the case, your 2.99% actually translates into monetary value far more than anywhere else. So they think we're stupid. They've always thought we're stupid. They think we're so stupid, but when you actually look at the 2.99% figure they give us with what the real figures are in their budget, as I'll show you later, it's not 2.99%, it's the other side of 3%. Or they can't add up. Which one is it? They think we're stupid, or they can't add up? I think they think we're stupid. Anyway, before we move on, the council budget papers, honestly, I've never seen anything like it. 927 pages. I have. I've waded through it. Over 900 pages. Gobbledygook. All on purpose to hide the key information. And I'll share the key information with you. This won't be a long broadcast at all, but I'll share the key information with you so you can go away and decide for yourself what is going on here. Because some of this is just, it's just astonishing. It really is astonishing. So the key headline for me is it's not 2.99%, it's over 3%. Do your sums. Look at your council tax bill from last year. Look at what the rates are this year, and you'll see it's over 3% on Band A. And Band A, as the council admits, is the majority of houses in the town. So I'd like to think we go off the majority of houses in the town, and it's the other side of 3%. Isn't it, Abdul Jabbar? Isn't it, Sean Fielding? Yes. Barefaced lies. The other key headline to start with is that in the 10 years, over the last 10 years since Labour have been in charge of this town, your council tax has gone up in the region of 30%. That's right, 30%. And the questions, I have two questions for you. One, has your salary gone up by 30% in the last 10 years? Mine definitely hasn't. Yours might have. I don't think so. Has your salary gone up by 30%? But more importantly, do you believe, have you experienced, are we getting 30% more value, 30% more services from this council? Anyone? Okay, council's budget. Okay, key headlines. Let's move our way through it. The council need from council tax. The council's requirement is 98 million, so just short of 100 million pounds. Bear that figure in mind. It's 100 million pounds, and that's excluding the extra they take for the parish councils in Shaw and Saddleworth. So just under 100 million pounds is what they need. And you can see in Saddleworth Parish, they claim another 1.7 million and another 1.7 million in Shaw. So you can see they take some more money out of Shaw and some more money out of Saddleworth on top of that. So you people of Shaw and Saddleworth, because you've got these parish councils, you pay a bit more. And this is what your bill looks like, or what your bill will look like. Band A, £1,354. Last year, Band A was £1,314.77 rather than the £1,354.78. Now, the 2.99% doesn't add up because the difference in that is £40. The difference of £40 and a penny, because that's what £1,354.78 minus £1,314.77 gives us, is actually 3%, just over 3%. So the 2.99% is just a complete fallacy. It's just, why do that? Why lie to the people of the town? So there you go, 30% in 10 years, and they're still lying to us. And I'm just going to get to the pages. Just bear with me. I've highlighted everything I need in this 920-something page document. It's took me 2 days, by the way, to make sense of it and to go back and check with people I know to say, have I read this right? Have I read that right? And they've all said, yeah, you've read all of this right. Here's the first bit. The first bit is confirmation that they are selling our assets. They are selling what they can. They're selling the family silver. An assumption that flexible use of capital receipts at a value of £2 million would support the budget. So £2 million, they're selling they're selling all of our history and our heritage off. Maybe they'd get more than £2 million if they sold it for a value that, if they sold it for what it was worth rather than to their mates. The next point to pull out is in their capital strategy. So this is what bought Spindles, the capital strategy, and all the stupidness, all of the stupidness with the old town hall, Prince's Gate, Hotel Future, all of that nonsense is here. The 21-22 revenue budget, see again, relies on £2 million of funding from capital receipts. So it's again an acknowledgement that they need the money from selling our history. But this is where it gets really interesting. In 2021, so the year that's just gone, they borrowed £53.53 million. Prudential borrowing, £53.53 million. That's last year, 2020 to 2021. They borrowed over £50 million. And this year, they plan to borrow another £42.87 million. So in these 2 years, so we're clear, and I'll put myself back on. In these 2 years, what these people have done is they have borrowed just short of £100 million in prudential borrowing for their vanity schemes. And that's on top of the hundreds of millions of pounds they've already borrowed and blown. And this debt will be paid not just by us, but our children and our grandchildren. Buried in this document is the acknowledgement of how much they borrowed last year and how much they borrowed this year, and it's just short of £100 million. So, to keep your council tax at this wrong but electioneering figure of 2.99%, because that's what it is. Sean Fielding is up for re-election. Abdul Jabbar is up for re-election. Howard Sykes is up for re-election. So all the senior heavyweights are up for re-election. They've kept this figure low by 1, borrowing more money, and 2, by selling our assets and continuing to sell our assets. No, my fellow rabble, it gets worse. Just bear with me whilst I find the page. 100 million, yeah? 100 million borrowed in the last 2 years. Can you... I'm going to read this bit to you because it's important. There has been several reports issued on the subject of the financial resilience of local authorities, alongside the publication by the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, SIPFA, of the Local Authority Financial Resilience Index and the implementation of a financial management code. This is basically about reserves, our savings, our people's savings that the council has. The reserves. And what SIPFA demonstrate or highlight is how other councils have burnt through their reserves and gone bankrupt. Some headline figures for you. The council, since 2016-17 to now, so in the last 5 years, I think if you include this here, they have burned through £32.94 million of our savings. That's £33 million they've burnt through. They have burnt through our reserves. And for this year, they want to use more of our reserves. And they want to use this year another £17 million of our reserves. So between 2016 and 17 and now, in 5 years, they have burned through £50 million of our reserves, £50 million of our savings. So they're selling our assets. They are borrowing money at amounts unheard of. £200 million in interest payments we've paid in the last 10 years, £200 million we've paid in interest payments just to service the debt of past years. And these last 2 years, they've borrowed £100 million more. And in the last 5 years, they've blown £50 million of our reserves. This is unsustainable. This is a council at risk of bankruptcy. And it's not me who's just saying this. Buried on page 17 of the report. None of them will make any reference to this, but buried in page 17. The external auditors concluded that for 2019 to 20, the council has made proper arrangements to deliver financial sustainability in the medium term. However, it is also pointed out that the council has significant levels of earmarked reserves as at 31st of March 2020, but these were not sufficient to sustain the council's financial position over the medium term. It was important to note that the public findings into both Nottinghamshire City Council and London Borough of Croydon indicates councils were at risk of not being able to agree balanced budgets, so their reserves were insufficient to mitigate either in year or 2021-22 estimated shortfalls in resources. That is the council's own auditors warning the council that this town, if it continues as is at risk of bankruptcy. Reserves gone. Borrowing that will cripple generations to come who will pay and pay and pay to service the debt. Buried in this budget. And he is smiling, Jabbar and Fielding, with their 2.99% lie. Now, ordinarily in a household, when you're under such pressure, you tighten your belt. Not Sean Fielding, no. He goes and buys a supermarket, a shopping centre for over £12 million that he admits he's not seen. That he wants to spend another 50 odd million pounds to move his council staff in there. Force move the market in there. Took on the debt. Servicing the shortfall for Spindle's figures he won't release. Increasing his PR team so they can get him on TV and get him in the newspapers so he can raise his profile. And meanwhile, the auditors, the council's own auditors, are worried that the town will go bankrupt and feel the need to insist in this budget that their concerns are recognised. And the council's headline is 2.99%, the lowest levels of increase in council tax ever, blah, 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 nonsense. The town faces bankruptcy. £50 million of our savings wiped out in the last 2 years. £100 million borrowed in the last 2 years. £200 million of interest payment to service the debt made in the last 10 years. And all the time, bear with me, I've got to fast forward on my screen to page 700 and something. So just give me 1 second. And please, thank you. Sorry, by the way, thank you to all those who've been buying me coffees to keep me going in getting through this. I promised I'd do the best I can. This isn't my, I can do this. Actually, fine, I can do this. It's no problem. I don't enjoy doing this. I don't enjoy bringing you this news that our town faces bankruptcy and this information is buried in the report. Carolyn Wilkins. Now remember, Dr. Carolyn Wilkins is on secondment. She's not even working in the council anymore. She's working so minimal, she might as well not be working. The town is rudderless. Buried in this bit about the chief officer, the chief executive, is how pleased the council is that the minimum paid staff member earns 11 times less than Dr. Carolyn Wilkins, who earns, 11 times more. That's not something to be proud of. Particularly when you've outsourced many of the minimum pay people, so they're on 0-hour contracts with agency firms. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. Here we go. The chief executive's salary is £185,000. Remember, this is without her other bonuses, her pensions and things like that. The deputy chief executive is somewhere between £130,000 and £140,000. The chief officer that was randomly brought in, whatever her name was, Boobgate, is on another 130 odd grand. The managing director for children and young people is on 130 grand. The managing director for community health is 110, and the strategic director for joint commissioning is on 127, and so it goes on. These are our senior officers. Millions. It goes on between page 754. See this? 754. And it finishes at page 787. Look at this. Row upon row, page upon page of senior managers all on 50, 60, 70,000 pounds. Row upon row upon row. No cuts here. In fact, he's found the money to hire more PR staff for him. Row upon row upon row. You can see senior manager after senior manager. 70,000 these ones are. 60,000. 75,000. 60,000. 55,000. 80,000. I'm sorry if I'm giving you a headache, but I think you just need to see the pages. The pages. And pages and pages. I've had enough. You get the picture. I'm sure you get the picture. Row upon row. So they've not made the cuts. In fact, they've expanded hiring themselves and their mates, giving them massive pay rises, hiring into positions we never had or we never needed. £100 million of our savings wiped out in the last 2 years by this council. And he's claiming 2.99%. It's just electioneering. Nothing but electioneering. Borrowing. Borrowing money. Like there's no £200 million in interest payments, people, over the last 10 years, just to service our debt from your council tax. £200 million. And he's boasting 2.99%. It gets worse. So first of all, a fake figure. It's not even 2.99%, it's 3%. So first of all, he sets a budget to try and get himself re-elected. As does Abdul Jabbar and as do all the other councillors. Look, we're doing great. It's only gone up by this much. When in reality, over the last 10 years, your council tax has gone up by 30%. Second, the council, are selling our history and our heritage on mate rates to a whole host of dodgy guys. They reckon they're going to raise £2 million this year. What happens when all that ends? We can only sell our history and our heritage once. We shouldn't be selling it at all. He's then borrowing money. Prudential borrowing. He's borrowing another 100 million. £50 million of our savings has gone to hide the debt. The auditor is telling us we're at risk of bankruptcy. The salaries for executive and senior managers is out of control. And then they're making cuts. To the few services that we value, they're making cuts. They're not cutting their salaries. They're not cutting the number of councillors they've got. They're not cutting how much money they put in their pocket. They're making cuts to the services we receive and the most vulnerable receive. They're cutting the youth services. They're cutting small community projects. The 2 women he's hired for his PR cost more than some of these projects that they're cutting. Priorities in all of the wrong places. And then to make it worse, this is the final one, to make it worse, with all of the screaming and shouting and gesturing at the government to do with school meals and feeding our children, these people, Sean Fielding, Dr. Carolyn Wilkins, Abdul Jabbar and all of the others, do you know what they're doing? They're increasing the cost, the school meal costs. So it costs working parents, those who are on the cusp of those free school meals but actually striving to work and earn money and stand on their own 2 feet. Council are increasing the fees to feed their kids. In this climate, the council are taking more money from parents to feed children in schools. How much longer can this go on before this town says enough? We are on the verge of bankruptcy. It's there, hidden in the report. It's hidden in the budget. And no one will raise it. No one will question it. Because they're all in it together. I hope I've been of value. I hope my 2 days of ploughing through this 1,000 page, 900 and something page report. Grateful to all those who bought me a coffee. If you fancy, if you can, please, I'll happily take more coffee off you. To the rabble, I'll see you on Sunday evening. Take care. Thank you very, very much.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.